This week, we're going to dive into Lightroom 5, and I'll show you my favorite new features.
Adorama TV presents Exploring Photography with Mark Wallace, where you will learn innovative techniques on shooting a wide range of photography. Here's your host, Mark Wallace.
Hi, you're watching another episode of Exploring Photography right here on Adorama TV. I'm Mark Wallace. Well, the good news is that Adobe has just recently announced Lightroom 5, and there are some features here on Lightroom 5 that I absolutely love. And so today I want to take a look a little bit closer at Lightroom 5. Well, let's dive into Lightroom 5. There are several features that I absolutely love that I think are going to save photographers a ton of time. And these are for fixing distortion in lenses, for adding radial filters. And my favorite I'm going to save to the very end because it is, I believe, unbelievable what Adobe has done to the healing brush in Lightroom 5. It's pretty spectacular, and I think the price of admission is worth it just for the healing brush capabilities. But we'll get to that. So let's start by talking about how to fix things like this. This is a big issue with this building right here. It looks like it's falling backwards because there's a lot of distortion in this lens. And so we need to fix this. We need to make this building look like it's not about to fall over, and we can do that really easily. And so we'll do that. Now, by the way, I am getting a full screen view by hitting the keyboard shortcut F. That used to be able to put you into a full screen mode for the entire interface, but now that has changed. Now it's Shift F to change how the window looks, and just normal F to go to a full screen view of what you're working on. So that's something new. So we're going to hit D to go to the Develop module, and we need to fix this image. So what we'll do is we'll scroll down to the right-hand side, and we have these corrections, these lens corrections over here. And normally what you could do with a lens is you could enable profile correction, and it would know what lens that was. So I'll click that, and notice it doesn't know what lens it is. I have to maybe manually select it if Lightroom had a profile for it, but it doesn't. This was a specialty lens that's not in the library of lenses that Lightroom knows about. And so we need to fix some things. Number one, this isn't level. It's shifting to one side, and we have some vertical issues. So we have the ability to click full auto, and Lightroom will evaluate the image and try to fix everything on its own. That works okay. Or you can just say level it, or fix the vertical issues, or do both level and vertical. And that's what we're going to do in this image. So I'm going to click that. Watch what happens. Whammo! We have a building that looks like it is straight. And we need to do some fixing on the crop, because when it does that, it has to distort the image quite a bit. And then we have these white areas here where the image has been fixed. So all you have to do here is go in there, take your crop tool, crop in the sides a little bit, and then you can have your image that looks just fine. So take a look at the before and after, falling over, whoa, and looking normal. So that's my first tool that I really like. It's called Upright. We'll go back to our normal view. Now let's take a look at our radial filters. So I'll go into the Develop module, kick open this panel over here, and radial filters can be found right next to our brushes and gradient filters and things like that. So normally when you add a post-crop vignette, it's found down here in Vignette and Effects, what you do, and I'll make a white one, no matter what you do, it's centered. And so that was a real drag in Lightroom 4 and previous versions, because if you wanted to have an off-centered vignette, or if you wanted to have a vignette that was a different shape, you really didn't have very many choices. You could change the roundness a little bit, you could change the feather a little bit, but that was about it. You couldn't really change the shape of this or do anything else. And so now we have these radial filters. We can do all kinds of things. So I'll go up here to this radial filter. It's at the very top. Not only can we add a vignette, we can change the exposure, brightness, contrast, saturation, clarity, all kinds of things. So it's sort of like a brush. So what I'll do here is I'm going to drag out sort of this shape right here. And you can change this as you go. So I'm going to try to get as much of our model right here as possible. So the shelm, and I can even rotate this so it's not a perfect circle. And then what I can do is I can start doing things. So I'm going to take the exposure down to everything that's outside of that. I can change the feather so the transition is either sharper or more gradient. I can do that. The other thing I can do is now I can start adding new radial filters. So, for example, let's say we wanted to have LaShawn's face glowing. And this isn't something that necessarily we would want to do, but I could add another filter. What we'll do is we'll take that, we'll rotate it, we can reposition it so it's just on her face, something like that. And that looks good. I'll rotate it a little bit more. And then we can do some things like, let's say we want to have the exposure a little bit brighter. Well, what's happening there? Well, what's happening is everything outside of that is changing. So we want to invert the mask. I'll invert the mask, and now it's everything inside that's changing. So we have that ability, and we can do things like, instead of just exposure, we can just do brightness, we can do contrast, we can take the clarity down. So maybe we just want to have her skin to look a little bit better. We can sharpen up her face, and we can start adding more and more. Maybe we want to have these paintings back here, these pictures, show up a little bit. Well, whoops, we need to invert the mask. So we can add one there. We can add another one down here. You get the idea. You can start doing all kinds of things with these little radio tools. So there you have it. We've added 3 of them. And so we've added a brand new picture. So from this to something like that in just a GIF. So I love the new radio filters. And I think that is also worth the price of admission. But wait, there's more to come, and this is spectacular. So normally when you're editing a portrait, and this is where I live, right? This is my wheelhouse. When I get done with all of my normal editing of tonality, well, I normally have to go in and do some retouching of the skin. And we know we've always been able to go in here, and this is a spot healing tool. And you could get a small tool, and if there's a blemish, you could click on that, and you could sort of fix those spots on the skin, and that was just fine. However, if you had an issue, for example, you had some flyaway hairs or something like that, so we've got, let's say, this hair right here that needs to be fixed. Well, to fix that, you'd either have to do a series of dots, or really, you'd have to hop over to Photoshop to fix that. Any kind of more than just a dot kind of an issue, you would have to go to Photoshop to fix it. Well, now this works as a healing brush. So if you click and drag, now you have a brush, and it will go and it will replace this from a different area. And now you can see that that is gone. The nice thing about this is you can do multiple of those. You can change the size. You can change the opacity, so you can do a little bit of work or a lot. So for example, let's say that we wanted to fix underneath the eyes of Sam's face. We don't really need to, but I could go in here and I could maybe do some things like this, and it's going to choose from a different area. I don't like where that is being chosen from, so what I'll do here is I will say, hey, don't choose from there, choose maybe from over here. And then what I can do, and I'll zoom back in here a little bit, I can then determine how opaque this is. So it's just a little bit of an issue or a lot. And so it's a much more subtle look, and I can do subtle changes to my image. And that's something you had to go to Photoshop to do previously. But wait, there's more. This is a really amazing healing brush because it's content aware. So for example, let's say you happen to be in the redwoods and you got a really cool picture of yourself, but in that picture you have a Matt, and you don't want Matt to be in the picture. Man, I wish I could take Matt out of this picture. Well, I can. I'll go to my develop module. This is crazy. So here we have Matt. He's in the trees. I'll go here to my healing brush tool, and I'm just going to paint him out. So I'm going to go in here, make sure I just paint right on Matt. And this is pretty advanced because there's all kinds of shrubs and bushes and all kinds. So I'm just painting around, making sure I get just Matt, nothing but the Matt. You'll get that tripod case over there. Something like that. All right. Now, with magic, we can take a different area of the image. Do maybe this right over here. Something like that. Good. We need to make that opaque so it works. Now look, Matt's gone. Poof. Gone. Check that out. This camera over here, I want that to go away. So I can go in here and paint that out. Of course, I would do a little bit better job than that. Maybe like that. You can see that now I'm alone in the forest and Matt is gone and it's just me hanging out in the redwoods. That, to me, is worth the price of Lightroom 5 because it saves me many round trips to Photoshop for doing all the advanced retouching that I could only do there. Now, a lot of that stuff I can do right here in Lightroom. That's a huge time saver, and it is something I love about Lightroom 5. Well, there you have it, my favorite Lightroom tools. Well, sorry to Matt for taking him out of the redwoods, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And you can see why I absolutely love Lightroom 5. And the thing about it that I think makes it a big deal is that you've always had to go between Lightroom and Photoshop to do any kind of pixel level editing and healing, retouching, things like that. And now you don't absolutely have to do that. You can do those retouching tasks right there in Lightroom. And so absolutely that is going to eliminate the need for a lot of photographers to actually buy Photoshop, and that's a big money-saving deal. And so that might help you make the decision if you're going to upgrade from Lightroom 4 to Lightroom 5. My personal opinion, I absolutely love it. I'm not giving up Photoshop, absolutely not. I need them both, but I love the new features in Lightroom 5, and so I'm glad to share them with you. Well, don't forget to subscribe to Adorama TV right here on our YouTube channel, because if you do, you'll get tons of tips and you'll see a lot more stuff about Lightroom 5 and Photoshop and shooting and in the studio and outside on location and all the good stuff that we're known for. So click the subscribe button and I'll catch you again in the next episode. So here's my favorites of Lightroom 5. My favorites of Lightroom 5? That doesn't make sense. I liked that until that. There we go.
Want to get the most out of your Adorama photography equipment? Visit our Learning Center where you can read popular articles, how-to tips, buying guides, and product reviews.